Hello guys, it is Daniel. Okay, I messed up. Hello, it is me Daniel, and today I will be showing you Newton's 3 laws of motion, along with Harrison, who will be in many of the real-life examples for each law. First, we will explain the law, then give the real-life example and why it relates to that law. Without further ado, let's begin. So, what is Newton's first law? It is when an object continues in a state of rest or in a state of motion at a constant speed along a straight line unless compelled to change that state by a net force. It is important to note that if we were in space, for example, in a vacuum where there is no friction, no gravitational forces from matter acting on us, you could theoretically travel at that same speed along that same line forever, given that the universe is infinite in size. And like I just mentioned before, we have this property of matter called inertia, which is an object's tendency to either remain in motion or to remain at rest. Here down on Earth, things are a little bit different. Let's take a look. So here's a small metal ball, which Harrison will roll down the school hallway along the floor. So as you can see, the ball won't maintain its state of inertia in motion forever because there is a wall that acts as a force against the ball's motion. This can also be applied to Newton's third law, why the ball doesn't freeze when it hits the wall, but we'll explain that later. Earth has a gravitational force that pulls you down, as well as an atmosphere with air and the surface the object is moving along that has friction and applies a normal force to the ball in motion. So the ball will eventually stop if we had a much longer hallway due to friction. In the second example, the force acting on the ball in motion doesn't have to be stationary, it can be in motion as well. As a result, the wooden block will hit the ball, sending it in the opposite direction. In space, the ball will continue forever in the opposite direction if it followed the same conditions as I explained before.
Why did it not work?
So here we are with Newton's second law, which states when a net external force acts on an object of mass, the acceleration that results is directly proportional to the net force and has a magnitude that is inversely proportionate to the mass. The direction of the acceleration is the same as the direction of the net force. Newton's second law of motion also has an equation. Force is the product of mass times acceleration. The more mass an object has, the more applied force that object will need to accelerate it. Now, let's look at 2 more real-life examples of how Newton's second law motion applies to real life. As you can see, we have a meter stick that has 2 weights on the right side and 1 weight on the left, making it unbalanced. Well, with the help of Newton's second law, we can fix up this issue. Now, the meter stick is balanced, with 2 weights on either side. Why, might you ask? Well, to balance something like this, the meter stick, we need to achieve equilibrium. The forces of the weights on either side cancel each other out, resulting in equilibrium. We have Earth's gravitational force, which is why the weights pull the meter stick downwards. Making up these numbers, if each weight was 10 newtons, we would need to add 10 more newtons to the left side to balance the meter stick. The heavier one side is, the more force is needed to counteract that side. Now, we have a balanced force. In our second example, Harrison and I push a textbook. If our applied forces are the same, we have a balanced force with no acceleration. However, if Harrison lets off with some force, the textbook moves right because of the unbalanced net force, and the same if I let off some force, the textbook will move left. Here we are with Newton's third and final law. Whenever one body exerts a force on a second body, the second body exerts an opposite directed force of equal magnitude on the first body. You may recognize this when you see a rocket taking off from Earth. The thrust of the rocket engine exerts a powerful force onto Earth, and the Earth in return will exert the opposite but equal in magnitude force on the rocket, propelling it up. But let's just hope that we don't need to see Newton's third law in action anytime soon, if you know what I mean. With our first example, we have Harrison dropping a ball on the floor, which will bounce back up due to Newton's third law of motion. As you can see, the amount of force the ball hits the floor is equal to when the floor acts as an equal but opposite force upon it. If we change how hard the ball hits the floor will always return the same amount of force in the opposite way. The final example will be me playing my drum pad, hitting it with the drumstick. This also relates to Newton's third law of motion because the applied force, the drumstick hitting the pad, is countered by a normal force, the pad, which helps bounce the stick back up. In this video, I am only using my wrists to apply the force, then physics takes the wheels. In the second video, I use my wrists for both drumsticks to roll on the pad, but still, the individual bounces is due to the third law. Newton's laws affect us on a daily basis, whether we lean against a wall, play basketball, or try pushing a car. The three laws affect us in a unique way. Thank you for watching.